Good afternoon, everyone. We have breaking news. The President of the United States, President Obama, of course, now on the Boise State campus. He landed out at Gowan Field at about 1:20 and has been at the university now touring the engineering department. We are awaiting his speech, his first public remarks since his State of the Union address last night, and we have live team coverage for you today. First, we want to head down to Boise State University. Don Nelson, Lauren Johnson joining us live from inside the Kevin Williams Sports Complex, where it is very noisy, right, Don?
It is like a rock concert, Roland, just like it was in 2008 when Senator Obama came to Taco Bell and packed in 14,000 people here at the Kevin Williams Sports Complex on the campus of Boise State. It is a full crowd, and it is loud. The president will be making his way, and I have to tell you something. I don't know if President Obama put in a request for the music, but somebody here really likes Bruce Springsteen because they're cranking it a lot. We do have the Boise State Band over here. I'm sure they will crank it up. About 30 minutes ago, it was kind of interesting, and it's like a bit of a pregame show for a Boise State game, because not only do you have the band here, but of course the crowd started the Boise State cheer, which was kind of fun. It lasted for about 60 seconds. I think a lot of media from out of town were kind of looking around, what's going on here? But everybody's very excited to see the president. I think everybody knows how close he is. I think you can notice the crowd right behind us off the podium here are kind of looking at us for a cue, because they know once we start talking, the president must be close by. So momentarily, I'm sure the president will be coming in. And it's going to be hard to say anything, Roland, as you might expect. You've covered these kind of events before, where people are just nuts. What's kind of interesting too is people coming here the day after the State of the Union address. There's the theme, the middle class economics, which I'm sure you and Jasper have talked plenty about already today. But to see him within 24 hours, the very next day, the very first stop after the State of the Union address, is a really big deal. All the networks are here. It's that first speech after the State of the Union. Of course, he'll leave here tonight for Kansas, and he'll speak on the campus of the University of Kansas in Lawrence tomorrow. So, we kind of joked he's not in a big hurry, but I'm sure the president's always on a hurry. His folks keep him on a pretty tight schedule, as you know, Roland.
Well, absolutely. He's been running ahead of time today, which is impressive as well. Don, thanks very much. We'll get back to you in just a moment. I want to bring Jasper LaCalzi in from the College of Idaho, because we were talking about, of course, the State of the Union address that the president gave. Now he's giving his first speech following that, and it is a big deal because it's fresh on everyone's mind.
Yeah, and that's what he wants to do. He wants to keep it fresh on everyone's mind. And you saw with the backdrop, what was the big thing that the president was pushing? Was his slogan was middle class economics.
Right.
And that's what he wanted to push. It's community colleges, it's retraining, it's tax cuts for the middle class. So that's what he wants to really push for. And coming here to Idaho, and especially to Boise State, you'll see that looking at the engineering program and such like that, getting more training for these new jobs in the future, and that's what he wants to push. That's what he did during the State of the Union address. And he wants to keep that message rolling, so it keeps on going and it gains more momentum.
And again, a huge crowd out there for this event, as you would expect, obviously. We see now, I believe these are live pictures. This just happened, actually. This is taped video of the president's motorcade as it pulled in along the university there. And I believe this may be, I can't tell the street. University right there. They just left the engineering department, of course, where the president had a chance to tour the facilities there, talk to some of the students about the projects that they've been working on and how that's played into their education. And now this is a live shot of where the president will be speaking. There's our Jake Melder stepping in, who's been following the president all along in his travels throughout town, going from Gowan Field down to the university and keeping an eye on what's going on out there. I don't know if Jake can hear us, so we'll check on Jake in just a moment. Jake, can you hear us right now?
Yes, Ron, I can hear you.
Alongside the
He's been
president's
running alongside the
motorcade.
president. Hey, tell us what it's been like following the president as he's been actually moving through campus.
You know, it's been difficult to follow the president because security is very tight and they're not disclosing which route he's going to be taken. But a crowd of people has been following him from point to point, just trying to get that glimpse of the president in his limo as he passes by. Of course, he's been waving to the crowd through the window, and the crowd here, for the most part, has been very energetic and excited to see him. There are a lot of people here that aren't as excited to see him. Plenty of protests, demonstrations. Of course, Save Saeed crowd is very strong here. In fact, you probably just heard a scream there from someone. Very intent on getting their demonstrations out here. President is about to get into the arena here. His motorcade pulled up on the far side, the other side of the center there, so he should be entering the arena shortly to deliver his speech. We will, of course, be very interested to see what his reasoning was for coming here to Boise after the State of the Union. Roland, back to you.
Yeah, he will provide more details on that. There's no doubt about that. Jake, thanks very much. And again, the president expected to speak about 3 o'clock. Lauren Johnson is inside the Kevin-Williams practice facility where about 5,000 people are gathered. Lauren, the atmosphere in there has got to be very exciting.
Oh my goodness, yeah, the crowd is big, 5,000 people rolling. In fact, I've got a lot of people right here, some BSU students, a bit of everyone, some from Indonesia. Woo! How excited are you guys to see the president speak?
We are so excited.
So excited. And you two are BSU students, right?
Yes, we are. We've been here all day.
All day, and how long did you stay in line for tickets?
About 4 or 5 hours. For a long time. Really long time.
And
It's so worth it.
So worth it. And what are you excited? What are you hoping the president says today?
Honestly, it's just exciting to see him here at Boise State for me, like
Probably
knowing that he cares.
Remarks on education as well.
Wonderful, wonderful. And what about you? Are you so excited to see the president?
Yeah. Yeah, I am.
Terrific. Yeah, the crowd is thrilled to be here. We're excited that the president is coming to Boise, and we're all looking forward to seeing what he says this crowd is. And so, Roland, back to you.
Lauren, I'd just be curious there. You know, we talked about the makeup of the crowd, and a lot of students from Boise State got access to tickets. What's the makeup? More Boise State students or more just general public?
You know what? I would say probably a bit of everyone. I even met someone from Indonesia and someone from Nigeria. I'm meeting people from all over, and so we have a bit of everyone, all ages here.
All right, it's an interesting makeup. Lauren, thanks very much for that view from down in the crowd there. 5,000 people managing to get tickets. A lot of people, of course, turned away as well. Different than the last time the president was here when 14,000 people basically just streamed in as he was a candidate.
Yeah, and that was short notice. We only knew about it the day before. It was a Saturday morning, which is a little bit easier than this because for some of this, people can't get off of work to 2 days almost in a row.
Right.
Because you got to get off of work to get the tickets and then get off work to do this. But when he was here in 2008, there was a lot more glamour with him then. I mean, some of the gloss has rubbed off since then. So then he was new and exciting. And also you have to remember, he came here right before the caucuses that were going to be run. So there was a lot of excitement about the whole process. So. Yeah, 14,000's a lot in short notice and such like this, but even the 5,000. But I'm sure the president's people and even the Secret Service, 5,000's a nice crowd. I mean, they're going to make some noise. You can keep it under control. 14,000's out of control.
It's a little out of control. And when you talk about the shine a little bit off. It shows in his hair, doesn't it? Back when he was here before, he had dark hair.
I know. I think I did too. But no.
Is that right?
No, but that's he's been under a lot of stress.
Well, I think he's going to be eased in that stress here in just a moment. And Jasper, sorry to interrupt, but let's check in with Don Nelson, who again is on the podium out there, and he's got a very good reception ahead of him, doesn't he?
He sure does, Roland. And Jasper, I'm going to have to say, it really happens to the best of us, doesn't it? The aging thing with the hair. I don't know if it's just the president or it's just all of us when we get to a certain age. The dignitaries are starting to file in. Dr. Kustra and his wife are just back behind me off to the side of the stage. I just saw Mayor Beater walk in. And what was interesting, too, is, we make the phone calls days before to find out who's going to greet the president at the airport, who's going to be down here in the first row in front of the podium. And Roland, remember, we were making the phone calls around the newsroom. They said, well, Mayor Beater's not in town. We're like, what do you mean he's not in town? How could he not be in town for the President of the United States? Well, it turns out, he wasn't in town because he had to fly back east and get a first-class ticket on probably the top airplane in the world. Of course, Air Force One we're talking about. How's that for an entrance back to your hometown, coming in on Air Force One with the President? But Mayor Beater is here. We have a number of state representatives. Governor Andrus, we spoke with earlier. Do not see him now, but we did speak to Governor Andrus, and hopefully we're going to hear from Cecil Andrus a little bit later today and in our newscast. As you remember, it was Cecil Andrus who introduced Senator Barack Obama at the Taco Bell Arena in 2008. I asked him yesterday, spoke with the former governor on the phone, and he said he will not be introducing him. He believes it will be Dr. Custra. He's not quite sure, but that would make sense. This is quite a big deal. And, Jasper could even talk about that a little bit, what it means for the school itself to have the President of the United States not only come here for a stop, but to take a tour of the facilities and to spend, a good, it's going to be probably a good hour and a half that he spends on campus. So this means obviously a lot to the university.
Well, obviously, let's ask Jasper a little bit about that, Don. You're right. I mean, Boise State getting this kind of exposure after the State of the Union address, talking about education, such a key element. And now the president is here. What does it mean for Boise State? What does it mean for its engineering department, which is so closely connected to Micron, which is a huge player in the technology industry?
And I think, it'll get some national-wide attention, but I think a lot of it's just in the Valley and in Idaho. A lot of people didn't, even people in Boise. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Boise has such an up-to-date and cutting-edge engineering department. They didn't know that, so this is something that's going to help put Boise State on the map more than just for playing football. That's all anybody knows them for. That hey, they actually do have classes there and programs also right. that they do, and I think that's important. And we were talking about Dave Beater and such. So, well, why is the president coming here? I think Beater might have had something to do with this. Why come to Boise other than Dave Beater and maybe some people, poking him in the air and say, hey, why you got to go somewhere? Why not come here? We've got this thing.
Because he's the top Democrat in the state, basically.
Yeah, and this helps out Beater also, but the president's people are always looking for where can we go for this type of event, and they're looking for a new type of place. Well, if Beater's there, he was in D.C. going, hey, why don't you come here?
What about Bob Custra as well?
And Custra, both he and Obama are from Illinois, so I think they know something of each other, and that's going to be in there. And I just think any of these things, it's just a number of things just happen to fall together and boom, 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 and hey, it all makes sense. And let's go do it. He's also going to Kansas, so this is, he's coming that way. I think the president also doesn't want to go to, San Francisco, New York, a lot of the real blue areas. Let's go to some red areas. Let's talk about the middle class. Let's go to the nation's heartland. And you think of how much more heartland is there than Idaho and Kansas?
Right. Well, and he's talking about working across the aisle, with the Republican Party. Is this a, sort of a hand out to say, hey, look, I'm going to a red state because I mean what I say?
Yeah, and there's one issue that, of course, the president brought up that ties to both Kansas and Idaho and what he's pushing for, and that's opening up trade and relations with Cuba. Kansas especially is pushing, hey, let's send more farm products to Cuba. Governor Otter's been pushing that for years also. So that's actually an issue that he and some of the heartland red states agree with him on, more so than maybe some of the other Republicans in the country. So that's something that could be bipartisan, opening up markets to Idaho potatoes. They need potatoes down in Cuba and other types of products we have here. And with Kansas, let's open that up. And though people in Florida, maybe some other places might be against it, if the president can get a couple members of Congress in Idaho and Kansas behind it, they might get it done there.
Well, along those lines, interesting and unfortunate timing for the governor of Idaho to be in the hospital when this visit takes place.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's the conspiracy theories that that's why the president's coming, or Otter planned this that way. No, I'm sure Governor Otter would have loved to have been there and to shake the president's hand. These type of events and situations are, for the most part, nonpartisan, and he would want to be here to welcome the president to his state.
Absolutely.
And if he wasn't getting his whole hip replaced, he was supposed to just get a little shave
there. A little bit of a
there.
surprise.
Yeah, it's a little bit more than he wanted for.
No doubt about that. Well, another surprise that came up at the last minute here is the story of Saeed Abedini, his wife Naghmeh, being able to meet with the president. We found out just yesterday it was confirmed that was going to happen. Let's check in with Lauren Johnson again down there at Boise State University about the president has finished his tour of engineering. Now he should be presumably at least headed towards that meeting with Naghmeh, correct?
That's correct. Hey, Roland. And you know, I've been in contact with Naghmeh. She actually just sent me a message that said that she's going to let us know as soon as she finishes her conversation with the president and see how that goes. So a lot going on outside here as well. There's been rallies for Saeed Abedini, who is being held as a prisoner in Iran. He is a Christian father, and Naghmeh, his wife, has just been granted a request of hers to meet with the president prior to his speech here. So that's very possibly going on right now or very soon. And again, Naghmeh is in touch with us and will let me know as soon as she's done with that talk to let us know how that went. And so there are a lot of people outside saying free Saeed, big rally, and it was a very large turnout there. So it'll be really interesting to see how that conversation goes. Roland?
All right, Lauren, I wanted to ask you, obviously there are a lot of people out there in support of Saeed Abedini. What about other protesters, other folks with other issues on their mind protesting outside where the president's going to speak?
There are other people. There's actually quite a few groups. I would say that the protest or rally, whatever you want to call it, for Saeed is probably the largest one out there, but we also have environmentalist groups out there hoping to create national parks, saying that they hope that President Obama realizes what a great state the gem state is, how we need to preserve the land here, and that's also a big topic out there that is being discussed.
All right, Lauren, thanks very much for that perspective outside where the president's going to be speaking at Kevin Williams' practice facility in Boise State. Other protesters out there talking about state national parks, that type of
especially
situation.
the White Clouds,
White Clouds.
And how they won and a big thing in the Statesman
Yeah,
today,
that's right.
the big ad about naming the White Clouds as a national monument. Now, the president could do that himself. Unilaterally, the president can do that. But I'm sure he doesn't want to necessarily do that. You have Representative Simpson and others. The best way to do the same thing they did with the Oahe area is to come up with some agreement, bring all the parties together, and come up with some agreement that everyone agrees to. I'm sure the president would want something like that, Representative Simpson, everybody wants to. But there's so many different people involved here with Custer County. There's the ATV people, there's hunters, there's hikers, there's naturalists, everything. Everybody wants something. The easy route is just to have the president just step forward and say, okay, I'm just doing this and make it a monument. But then it's too much of a broad axe going after everything. Instead, it's much better to make sure you get it right. But that takes a lot of work within Congress. And he might actually have a better chance getting it done now with Obama as president than with a different president. But I don't know. The other thing is the problem with the White Clouds is all four of the congressional representatives, senators from Idaho have to be on board with this. If one, and Senator Risch was against it for a while, if they're against this, they're not going, the president and others aren't going to go say, hey, if Idahoans aren't all behind it, then we're not going to do it.
Take a look at this. This is video that was taken just a short time ago of the president touring the engineering department at Boise State University. Some of these very fortunate students being able to talk with the president. Let's listen in real quickly.
This is actually a freshman student project.
Okay.
So we have a introduction to engineering class. The students do a surface learning project.
Okay.
And this is a project for a high school student who has a disability and has a difficult time opening his locker because he can't grasp the handle.
Right.
He didn't want something obvious and like, okay,
Yeah.
there's the kid that's got the problem, right? Students design this. And this is one of the prototypes, but we basically built one that the student in high school uses.
Actually uses.
Yeah, yeah.
Fantastic.
And we have some.
What's up with the feet here?
Yeah. So that was early on. This lab was, I guess, birthed probably 12 years ago.
Right.
And the first 3D printer that we bought was made possible through an EDA grant.
Yeah.
So that was used specifically for surgical planning. And so we did some foot models. The majority of what we did were actually.
All right, so a little
spine
faculty and some students there having a chance to speak with the president. Really fascinating location there. They were showing, and we can come back here, some of the items that they can create with three-dimensional printer, which is just fantastic for business sake to be able to create a prototype in really minutes and be able to get it out there and test it. Maybe not something that's permanent, obviously, but can show whether it's going to work.
Well, and that's what little I know a little about engineering as my wife does. But what I understand with this great thing about this lab, besides teaching students and as an education, that businesses are able to come into there and take advantage of the lab and get assistance from there. So what you have here is not just education for the students for when they leave, but also it helps out the community. And I think that's some of the stuff that the president was talking about before.
It's building business.
It's building businesses, and how can we help out to do some of these things and make it easier. And you heard on there too, how did they get this? They got a grant from the national government to do some of this stuff. So that's what he wants to know about, is how the national government can help facilitate some of this education and the business community.
Right. Now, let's go back to, before we talk a little more about the speech that the president is going to be giving in context with what he gave last night, let's talk just a moment again about Saeed Abedini and his wife Naghmeh. Do you think he had to meet with her? That was just pretty much a mandatory thing as part of this visit?
I don't think it was. I don't think it was mandatory.
From his perspective,
from the president, nothing's mandatory.
No,
he
but
can do whatever he wants.
And
but
politically speaking, did he need to meet with her?
I think it was a smart thing. I don't think he had to, but I think it was a smart thing. And I think, like I said before, I think it feeds into his position that he was talking about last night at the State of the Union address about Iran.
Yeah.
That he doesn't want Congress to put more sanctions on Iran, and he's talking about the nuclear program, but Saeed and others and political prisoners are involved with this too. It has to take negotiations, and that if you push Iran, you put more sanctions on them, that makes negotiations, whether it's about nuclear weapons or about political prisoners or religious prisoners, makes it more difficult. So I think it also makes it for those, not just in the Boise area, but throughout the country, who are supporting him, the president can say, look, I care, we're working on this, okay?
Right.
We haven't forgotten, but it's not something that you snap your fingers into some, the released prisoner from Cuba, who was at the State of the Union address too. He was there for decades. So these are things that don't happen quite quickly, but I think he wants to point out that how do they happen is by negotiations, is by behind the scenes, and not by making rash comments or saber rattling type stuff either.
Sure, and so you covered the political aspect of it there. Going back to my original question in terms of Naghmeh, it's maybe perhaps an opportunity. Here is a woman who's hard to ignore. There is no doubt about it. She's there with her children. It's something that, politically speaking, it would be hard to ignore.
Yeah, and I don't think he wants to.
No?
I mean, I think this is something that he's coming to Boise. Why not do this? And maybe this was one of the reasons why he did come here. I mean, and he might have information to give her also. That's why I know she's going to be talking to Lauren later, but there might be some things that he can say,
hope.
hey, there's some things that are in the mix here that we're working on, and he could probably say, X, Y, and Z that you're doing, that helps us out.
Yeah.
A, B, and C that you're doing, that's not helping out, getting them out. So he might be sending her a message also.
Let's hope that there's good news there. We want to check in once again down at the Boise State campus with our Jake Melder, who is, as we're looking right now at a live shot right now inside the Kevin Williams Center. Jake's got an interview. Jake, who are you talking with?
Well, I've got here Keelan. He is a Boise State student, and he actually, you said that you did try to get a ticket, but you weren't quite able to yesterday.
That is correct. Yeah, I didn't know that they were handing out student tickets, and then I came here for the public one, and the line was so long. I just gave up.
Keelan is joined here with probably 100, 150 people who are sitting outside of the center, either demonstrating, just waiting to see the president. And in fact, you actually said that you did get to see the president in his motorcade.
I did. It was a pretty cool experience. I liked it.
Was he waving in your general direction?
He was. He's waving at me.
Jake, real
There you
quickly,
go.
can I ask you
That's what you're
something?
gonna tell your grandkids. down
Jake,
the
can
road.
you hear me
Yeah,
real
yeah,
quickly?
Roland.
I'm curious, in the past when Obama visited, they actually had video screens up outside, so people who weren't able to get tickets could hear and see the president. Is there anything like that down there?
I do not see any video screens out here, and to my knowledge, there won't be any audio that will be sent outside of the center. Of course, if that changes, we'll be able to update that, update you guys about that. But certainly, people can be watching us over the streaming. So if that's an option they want to take a look at there. Certainly, an excited group out here, though. Excited to see the president.
It sounds that way. Jake, thanks very much for that. And Jasper, again, we're talking about those video screens. When Obama visited last time, there were video screens on short notice.
Yeah, and I don't know. With that, I guess it was because it was a campaign or something. They were able to pull some things off, but you never know with these types of things. And it's with whether Boise State could have done some of that or what was going on. But there's also you can just go someplace and watch us on TV too.
Right,
I mean, it's
true.
not like it's anywhere. Probably get it on his phone, right? Isn't there?
No, you probably can in some way or another these days.
Get your
have changed
Today's
so much.
6 app.
Again, we're taking a look at video that was taken earlier as the president was touring the engineering department at Boise State University, having a chance to talk with faculty. And he relates well, it seems like, obviously, as a politician, to the average folks. And to learn a little bit about what they do at Boise State, and certainly getting some real attention for the university with this visit. I think we're going to try and check in with Don again because I'm curious. The last time that Obama visited Idaho, he was introduced by Cecil Andrus. This time, we're wondering who's going to introduce. I heard the possibility a student might be introducing the president. Have you heard anything about that, Don?
Haven't heard it. All I can tell you is you can see that people are starting to gather around the bottom of the steps, including Dr. Kustra from Boise State University. But I can tell you we're really close. Once they put the presidential seal on that podium, which they did just about 2 minutes ago, we are close to seeing the arrival of the President of the United States. The anticipation is growing, sort of like that balloon that keeps blowing up and up and up, and finally it pops. I mean, everybody was ready. They actually stopped the music, and then when the music came back on, I think a lot of people were like, oh, come on, one more song for the road, so to speak. But no, Roland, I think it looks like it could be a student, possibly Dr. Kustra. I mean, why not Mayor Dave Beater, who rode with him across the country back here to the City of Trees. But you're right, it was Cecil Andrus who introduced him back in 2008 when he was on the campaign trail, Senator Barack Obama, over at Taco Bell. So we are just waiting. Hopefully we are just moments away.
And
Everybody,
Don, let me ask you, Don, real quickly, since we mentioned Cecil Andrus and his involvement in the past. You had a chance to talk with the former governor, Andrus, about this visit. What did he have to say about it?
Well, he's pretty excited. I spoke with the former governor on the phone yesterday, and actually I had to interrupt him almost. Well, I sort of did because he was so excited about this trip. A return trip, so to speak, of now President Barack Obama, that he just kept going and going and going, what it means not only to Boise State University, but what it means for the entire state. And remember, Cecil Andrus, one of the most popular politicians in our state history, probably right up there with Frank Church. I'd let Jasper pipe in on that one. But remember, he spent 4 years in Washington as Jimmy Carter's Secretary of the Interior, so he knows the ins and outs of Washington. And he knows how you have to work with Congress, and that's where it all comes back to, is that sign behind the podium up on the wall, middle class economics. That's what the president was talking about last night. He detailed what he wanted to do, and I would be interested to hear what Jasper says more about the community college aspect of it, where the government will pay for those first 2 years if you work. The system goes. But of course, the Republicans on the other side of the aisle saying, whoa, wait a minute, how are we going to pay for this? But that's the big part of it, and I think we have heard talking with some of the folks earlier that after he does all the fun stuff, talking about Boise State, and probably acknowledge some of the football players who are here in their sweat gear. You can tell they're the football team. that he'll get down to some business and talk about the theme here again, middle class economics. Roland?
Yeah, absolutely. And Don, thanks very much. Holler, because we're getting close here. 3 o'clock is when the president is expected to speak, so holler when he gets close.